Good morning to all of you. Welcome back to the Namaste experience on this beautiful Monday morning. Isn't it? Do you agree? This is a beautiful Monday morning. So I want to begin by asking you a question. How many of you remember exactly where you were 22 years ago at this time? If you don't realize what I'm talking about, this is the 22nd anniversary of 9/11. So let me ask you a question. The same question once again. How many of you remember exactly where you were when you found out? No, 22 years ago. September 11th, 9/11. Some people are like, oh, yes. I actually had flown into New York City the day before. And 3 days from then, I was leading a group to Assisi. And I had 3 days and I had to make a decision. Do I stay in New York? And I had a couple of friends there I could visit, or do I go to Boston and visit Vicky? So I went to Boston and I visited Vicky. And so that's the only reason I wasn't in New York when 9/11 happened. And I was coming out of a yoga class and they had a TV on in the office. How many of you felt like this has got to be a dream? This can't be really happening. Mm-hmm. It was surreal, wasn't it? I hear Jet in the background telling us he was in prison. We all remember exactly. I want to hear that story later. So the question then becomes, when we find ourselves in the midst of a tragedy, especially of that level, where does it take us? Or where do we take it? Do we fall into the terror and the despair that it was meant to cause? Obviously, terrorism is designed for that. Or is there a place within that is still so quiet and so secure that we can be in the midst of anything and still experience the power of love no matter what? Did any of you have that experience on 9/11 where there was, even in the midst of the turmoil, there was still a centeredness in your being because you knew what was really happening, or you knew the real call, what you were being called to do, which was to hold that space, to love no matter what? So we all remember, I think those of you who were old enough probably remember the day that John F. Kennedy was assassinated. I was a baby, so I don't remember, but I was there. I'm not bragging, I'm just saying. I do remember 9/11. I also, there was something else that happened that taught me this lesson in a very direct way. And that was this past Friday evening. Now, many of you here at Namaste Village know what I'm talking about, but for those of you who don't, I'll explain. Scott mentioned when he was singing, he mentioned the magic show or the mentalism show that I performed at Casa del Sol on Friday night, and will perform again this coming Friday. I was really excited, as many of you know. I've been going around here in the village, grabbing people. Here, let me show you something. Grabbing a couple of different people and practicing. And so I would be ready. I would be ready for that first Friday night performance. And I had spent at least a couple of months really practicing. So the night came, and I'll just suffice it to say that almost from the very beginning, it was a disaster. It was, here I am up on the stage, and just nothing has worked. Some of them worked really well, but many of them were just a complete flop. And finally, at the end of the night, I was determined to do something spectacular, something that seems very dangerous. And that when I accomplished this dangerous feat, people would just be in awe. That was my intention. And so for those of you who weren't there is a steel spike about this long, very sharp. I have people touch it. It's like, wow, it could really hurt you. And then I had actually Flo. She was the volunteer. She came up. She did nothing wrong. And there were 4 cups on the table. And she was told, while I was turned around, I couldn't see, to put the spike underneath one of the cups. Now I come back up, and without touching the cups, I have to smash each one of them, avoiding the cup. That's what's supposed to happen. I'm supposed to psychically know which cup the spike is under and smash the other 3. Really, I think when done properly, it's a good trick. Well, I didn't do it properly. I smashed. Those of you who are on Zoom, you can see I came down with all my might right down on the spike. But the funny thing is, I think most of the audience thought that that's what I was supposed to do. How many of you thought I got it on the first cup? What they didn't realize, that I was bleeding all over the stage because I kept smiling. And yeah, so here I am now. I'm trying to hold my hand because the blood is coming down. But I was determined to not end on a sour note. So I did one more grand finale trick of the old multiplying wine bottle trick while blood is pouring down my hand. Now, how does this relate to 9/11? Just like with 9/11, we have a choice. Are we going to be pulled under, or are we going to be lifted above, right? Are we going to think that it means something and that I can solve the problem by getting pulled under? Or am I going to love no matter what? Am I going to be happy no matter what? And I was very happy to see that my reaction was love. Yes, I was bleeding. Yes, many of the tricks did not work out as they should, but there was still this sense of joy inside of me. Jet was the first person to notice that, and he said something. I didn't even realize it until he said something to me about it. But yes, there's this wellspring of joy that when we have opened up, we are able to love no matter what, to be happy no matter what. Whether it be a situation like we experienced 22 years ago, or something like a magic show and a steel spike. This, I think, is the proof of the pudding. Are we able to apply what we talk about here every day? Or are they just words? Now, I'm here amongst all of you who live at Namaste Village. I see you applying it. And that's really wonderful. I have to be honest, I've lived in many spiritual communities in my life from the time I was 18. And I don't think I've ever been part of a spiritual community that is more spiritually mature than this one. What that means is taking responsibility for your own experience, not projecting. I mean, we do. Of course, we have moments, but we notice it. We come back. We come back to our hearts. We come back to love. And I see that constantly. So it's wonderful to know that there is an example of love no matter what here in this community, which allows us to buoy one another, right? We support one another. When we come around Anne, and Anne is always so happy and filled with joy, doesn't she lift you up just being in her presence? And that's what we do as an entire community for one another. So that when we do encounter something that's rather difficult, like a spike through the hand, we have whatever is, we do whatever is appropriate, clearly. We don't deny what is happening. In fact, the next day, I guess this is another piece of it. The next day, I found myself for about an hour being a little depressed. I started to think about what happened. Like, oh man, I could have done this better, could have done that better. So I stayed with it. I didn't deny that. I didn't should on myself. You shouldn't feel that. I stayed right with it, and within an hour it passed, and right back to joy. So this morning I opened up the course, and I just wanted to see what the lesson of the day was. So the title of today's lesson from A Course in Miracles is "Let every voice but God's be still in me." Let every voice but God's be still in me. Now, those last two words really struck me. What is this really saying? Is it saying that God's voice is in me? Yes, the voice of and for God is in me now. Let all of those other voices, let that cacophony of the shoulds and the shouldn'ts, of the need and all of those other egoic voices, let them be still so I can hear that voice of God that is in me. It's not out here. How often are we waiting to get a message from somewhere else outside of us? And I think when we look at a community like Namaste Village, and I include everyone in this, not just those who live here, but everyone who is part of our morning sessions, because you're living this just as we are. But when we receive this lesson, realizing that the voice of God is in me, we're no longer looking outside of ourselves for something to give us what we don't have. This is when a community like this becomes spiritually mature. And so I've just been reflecting on that this week and how grateful I am to be living amongst such a beautiful family where there is this energy of love, no matter what. So that was Friday night. That was 22 years ago, and it's right now. So let's live it right now. I'm going to turn to Vicki and hear what you have to say about this. Good morning, Victoria.
Good morning, Brother James, and thank you for coming to visit me then. And what you're saying is the crux of it all. In fact, if you look at the lesson, the reading for that lesson of today, let all voices but God's be still in me, it's on what is sin. And the directions are exquisitely simple. And all it says is when these things come up, error, fear, and all the rest of it, to look at it and let it go. Just like you did Friday night or Saturday when you woke up, a little mad at yourself. What are you going to do? You got to let it in. You have to welcome everything. Let it in, look at it, whatever it takes to look at something. To look at something can be loaded. You might have to cry. You might have to sit there. You might have to let yourself be upset, hurt, embarrassed, whatever it is. But let it go is the ticket. Look at it and let it go. We cannot believe that the instructions are that simple. That's how crazy we are. We have twisted it. We have taken all these directions and written thousands of steps and processes and written hundreds and thousands of books. Here are the next 10 steps. Here are the 10 steps to happiness. Here are the 10 steps to this or that. When all that's asked of us, that's what forgiveness is. Look at it and let it go. And what you're describing as a spiritually mature community is a family of brothers who have been brought together as we are in this Zoom room, and all of us in all the little groupings, wherever we find ourselves. Thank you, God. And I really, this is one of the greatest things I'm always grateful for, that we are somehow supported by a family of brothers, if you call them mighty companions, who will look at it and let it go, who take responsibility for everything, 100%, baby, not less than that, not 99, certainly not 50%, 100%. And right now, with the world upside down and topsy-turvy and about to come into this realized awakening of love as our only identity, things are falling apart at the seams every which way. And 9/11 was one of the best examples of our lifetime recently, within our adult lifetime, to show us or to bring forth this experience. And I remember, and I don't know if you'll remember, my girl, one of our sisters, Fran Sousa, Franny in Boston, she has had opportunities since she was a young girl of seeing Mary. Mary has appeared to her and spoken to her throughout her life. And one of the things Mary told her very dramatically, and the morning of 9/11, and I'll never forget it because I felt the same direction, but I felt guilty, like, oh no, I wasn't being responsible enough. But yet I knew these simple directions have to be so. But Franny gave me the support I needed to let those simple directions be true. And what Mary told her that day, Mary told her, do not look at the news. Do not engage in the upheaval and the drama. Stay focused on me, focused on God's love. Do not let your attention wander. And I remember at that time, it's what centered me. I needed another sister to support me in knowing that, because by myself, I wasn't mature enough. I thought, oh, I've got a son in school. I better look at the news. I better know what's happening. I better know how to help people in our different, we had many, Course in Miracles groups going on live, but Franny's one voice supported me so that I could stand in that certainty myself. And that's what we do every day for each other. We're not one, we're many that support each other in letting this be simple, because it is simple. Life, the dream life, a life of hallucination that we're looking at is breaking down because our consciousness is breaking through into the truth of who we are, that we are part of our Creator. We are divinity. We are God's child. We are the living Christ. But in order to keep our attention there and allow that to keep opening up, we do need to look at the world situations around us, the current situations wherever we find ourselves, and look and let it go. Those are the directions. Let it go means don't hold it in our consciousness any longer. The attraction to holding it in our consciousness is the attraction of guilt. It's the attraction of separation to continue to punish ourselves. And that time is over. And we are the ones heralding that. The last experience of, this is a personal experience that I had last year around this time. Jody and Rod, that most of you know, got married, and they came to Boston for a big Boston celebration and a renewal of their vows. And John Mundy performed the original ceremony, and I was supposed to perform this one because it was for all our extended Miracles family in Boston, and it was at the apartment, in the function room. And here now, all 100 guys are here, local guys, family, and this is like you at the magic show. And I'm supposed to. Jody, please ask me, Vicky, every word I want you to say. I want this family to feel the value, the energy of this. So you can't miss one word. They give me the booklet, and I'm trying very hard not to miss one word. I tried so hard that I skipped two or three pages. And from the altar, Jody says to me, Vicky, I think you missed something. And I said, oh, did I? But what could I do? Here I am. But I felt terrible. I blew her whole ceremony. But what can I do but ad lib? It's like the blood coming out of your hand going to the next trip. I said to everyone, I can't remember what I said, but I had to ad lib and tell everyone what a mistake. And I felt so bad for Rod and Jody because they wanted it to be a particular way. Anyway, I had a laugh, and everybody laughed. And everybody opened up, but for me, it was humiliating. I'm just, oh no. But you have to look at it and let it go. And hopefully in the moment, although I had repercussions the next day as well. But isn't that it in all our lives, whether it's large or small? Can we look at it and let it go? Shame and humiliation and embarrassment, those are ego states. That's just a sign of wrong identity. I'm identifying as me, as a role, as a body identity. No, I'm called especially then, especially when I'm most embarrassed. You know, there's the God in all of us. Let's go with that. So look at it and let it go. Look at it and let it go. That's the whole healing process. It's not more than that, but it's also not less than that. Because when we let it go, we have to go into that state of what is so, eternal love, that I'm part of God, a little bit of God in me and everything. The whole world, like Scott's song, the whole world is embracing us because love is embracing us. The forms and the appearances of chairs and furniture and trees and people, they cannot inhibit, they cannot get in the way of the love of God that is our one reality and that is always hugging us. And I'll say one more thing. I fell across this website the other day called Heaven is Fun. So you know I had to check that out. I'm so excited. Heaven is Fun. And it's this very dear, precious sister, probably never heard of the Course in Miracles, who is a Baptist or something. And she stepped into heaven herself. And she found out it's as simple as stepping across into another dimension, what the Course calls a shift in perspective, in consciousness. And she found that heaven's all around her. It's everywhere, it's everything, and nothing inhibits it. And she has this lovely website called heavenisfun.com. You can look it up yourself. Anyway, let it be this simple. Simply, whatever the trauma is, the mistake, the embarrassment, look at it and let it go. Don't engage in another second. There's no need for big engagement of anything. If we find ourselves engaging it, that's the moment again to look at it, feel whatever is coming up, the embarrassment, the whatever, and let it go, and let our eye be single on the love of God. Let no other voice speak in our heads, to ourselves, to one another, but the love of God. So I love you all, and I thank you. Thank you, Brother James. Thanks, everybody.
What a perfect lesson. Everything is conspiring to our awakening. Did you notice that? Even spikes through the hand. They're just there to remind you to let it go. Let me actually read the paragraph from today's lesson. It says, today we let no ego thoughts direct our words or actions. When such thoughts occur, we quietly step back and look at them, and then we let them go. We do not want what they would bring with them, and so we do not choose to keep them. They are silent now, and in the stillness, hallowed by his love, God speaks to us and tells us of our will, not God's will. He tells us of our will, as we would have chosen to remember. Isn't that beautiful? So whatever it is, a spike through the hand, messing up someone's wedding vows, they're probably going to be for each one of us, 5 different things we do today that we could have chosen to hold on to prove that we are guilty or whatever it might be. Instead, let's just let it all go. You know, I know for myself, for example, the wound gives me a great story to tell next Friday night when I'm doing the trek again. I can say, just so you know how dangerous this is, last Friday, someone also suggested I take the other hand and bring it down. Then I'll have the stigmata. I could be Namaste Village's first stigmatist. So let's go ahead and we'll close it up. Scott's going to come up and he has a song to take us home with. So thank you, everyone. Scott, come on up. Yeah, that might be.
No sound on Zoom.
Oops, you made a mistake. Oops, you made a mistake.
And it sort of got out there mostly as a children's song. But one of the first verses I wrote for the adults just came back to me, and I haven't sung it in 20 years. And it's controversial. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Well, you had quite a ball, and he promised he'd call after that magical night. You gave him your trust, and he gave you his lust, and left at the morning light. Well, you endangered your health and made a fool of yourself, all on the first and last date. Well, you might have got burned, but I bet that you learned. Oops, you made a mistake. Now let's sing it one more time. Oops, you made a mistake. And you're beautiful, yes, you're beautiful. Oops, you made a mistake. And you're beautiful to me. You're beautiful to me. Let's finish this with a little visualization. Close your eyes and think of something you did or didn't do recently or in a past life, whatever comes up, that has you embarrassed, that has you maybe even feeling guilty or ashamed. And then put that mistake or whatever you choose to call it in the palm of your hand. See it in front of you. You know, put it out there. Some of you might need two hands. And we're going to sing, oops, I made a mistake and I'm beautiful. Are you ready? Oops, I made a mistake and I'm beautiful. Yes, I'm beautiful. Oops, I made a mistake and I'm beautiful to me. I'm beautiful to me. I'm beautiful to me. Blowing away. Wow.
And if Jack groans, then we're really in trouble. That means we've really crossed the line. Thank you, everyone. That was beautiful, Scott. Thank you, Vicky. What a great way to start off our week. And we close it by saying together, Amen, 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 y punto. Thank you, everyone. Have a beautiful day. We'll see you tomorrow. Namaste.